It's just amazing how the Haftorah speaks to current events. It's unbelievable. The Haftorah that we're going to read this Shabbos from Yirmiyahu, chapter 46. The Haftorah of Parshat Bo is Yirmiyahu, chapter 46. And I want to zero in on the Pasuk Yud Zayin, chapter 46, Pasuk Yud Zayin, Karu Sham Paro Melech Mitzrayim. So it speaks about Paro. It's Jeremiah 46, verse 17. It mentions Paro there. And then in 22, it says, Kolo Kanachash. The voice is like a snake. You ever hear a snake talk? What do you mean the voice is like a snake? What does Jeremiah mean? That Paro's voice is like a snake. Jeremiah 46, verse 17, and then verse 22, he speaks about Paro. The voice is like a snake. I don't think a snake has any voice. What do you think he's talking about? The Zohar says that the word Paro is actually an acronym for Pera. You see verse 17, Jeremiah 46, how you see the word Paro? Bill, rearrange the letters of Paro, what do you get? Pera. Oh my gosh. Pera. A foul, evil mouth. And that's the trait of the Nachash. The Nachash was the first creature to slander God in the Gan Eden. And the Zohar says that every one of us has a Paro inside of him. Every one of us has a Pera inside of him that comes out. Avi, who knows what evil lurks in the heart of man? So, right, Rabbi Abelson, this week we see that the Paro, the Pera, how our politicians are shaming and slandering each other, acting like the Nachash, acting like Paro, which is Pera. So the Haftorah warns us, don't go there. Don't follow the lead of our politicians that are shaming and slandering each other and occupying themselves with the Paro, the Pera, and that's the voice of the Nachash, because the Nachash was the first creature to speak Lashon Hara in the Gan Eden. Okay, so there you have one reference to current events. If you go on further in the Haftorah, verse 27, Jeremiah 46, verse 27. You with me on that? Mm-hmm. So he's speaking from how many years ago? From 2,700 years ago? But he's talking to us today. Va'atan you, verse 27. You ain't got a book? No books. Oh, no books. Va'atan you, al tira avdi Yaakov. Avram, tell me if I'm translating correctly. Va'atan you, who's you? Am Yisrael. Al tira avdi Yaakov. Do not be afraid, my servant Yaakov. Valtechas Yisrael. Don't be afraid and don't do panic. Ki hineni moshiacha merachok. God says, I save you from afar. Vezaracham eretz Yivyam. And I saved your children from the land of the captivity. Vishav Yaakov. And Yaakov shall return. See, the word Yaakov is spelled kind of funny there. It's spelled with an extra vav. Vishav Yaakov, there's an extra vav there. Yaakov will return, Vishakat Vishanan. He will have rest, peace, and tranquility, Ve'ein Machrid, and none will make him afraid.
When is this supposed to happen?
Will you tell me, Malka? This is speaking about now. Because how do we know? Because the word Yaakov is only written with an extra vav when Mashiach comes. Otherwise, Yaakov is, whenever the Yaakov is written 5 times in Tanakh, the word Yaakov is written with an extra vav, Reb Nachum. And Chazal say that's when the Navi is speaking about what? Mashiach. Messianic times. Because the vav is the hook that connects us to the above. So Vishav Yaakov, Avram, return. Nobody, Reb Henoch, nobody comes back after 2,000 years. Vishav Yaakov, Yaakov will return. And we will have peace and tranquility. We are living this prophecy. Who comes back after 2,000 years?
Nobody.
Who comes back 3 years after the Holocaust? Vishav Yaakov. Now, how does this tie in with the Parsha, Rabbi Abraham? The Parsha has the Parsha of Achodesh Hazeh Lachem. The power of Chidush. The power to rejuvenate. that 3 years after Auschwitz, we can come back and build this wonderful state of Israel, the jewel of the Middle East. That's the koyach of chidush, the koyach to renew ourselves. After losing a third of our people, to come back and resurrect our dead language.
Wow.
2,000 years. That's the koyach of chidush. That's the parsha we're going to read this Shabbos, HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem, and therefore it connects Yirmiyahu saying, because you have the koyach to renew yourself, you have the koyach to rejuvenate the Shav Yaakov, and therefore Yaakov will come back. Nobody comes back. Look at the next verse. The last verse, 28. Ata al tira avdi Yaakov num Hashem. Don't be afraid, my servant Yaakov. Ki itchani. I am with you. Ki esed kola b'chol hagoyim. All the nations that persecuted you, where are they now? What does kala mean? Avi, you know Hebrew. Kaput. Right. Where are the Phoenicians? Where are the Babylonians, the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians? Ask any anthropologist. They're all gone. They're extinct. But you, the Jewish people, are an eternal people. You will never be destroyed because we have the power of what? HaChodesh Hazeh Lechem. We have the power to rejuvenate, to reinvent ourselves. No other nation on earth has that, so therefore all the ancient nations are all extinct. But you, says God, will never be destroyed. You are an eternal people. You have the power of chidush to rejuvenate, renew ourselves. 3 years after the Shoah, a third of our people were massacred to come back and build this wonderful state of Israel. It's unheard of. Even atheists can't figure it out. You're coming from the ashes of Auschwitz, the crematoria, and you're coming here to the land of Israel, and you build the jewel of the Middle East, the leader in high-tech, low-tech medicine, science, you name it. Whenever there's a disaster in the world, anywhere in the world, Billa, who's there with the first team response, Lillian? Who? Israel. Little Israel. That's the koyach of chidush. Vishav Yaakov, return to sender. Now, the comeback kid, that's the power of Rosh Chodesh Avram, to reinvent ourselves, to renew ourselves. Like the moon. The moon looks at swallowed up in blackness, and we keep what? We are the great comeback kid. That's the power of Chodesh. That's what the Navi says, that we return, and we will never be destroyed. Unlike all the nations that persecuted us, they are destroyed. You ever wonder why the Chinese are still here? The Chinese are older than Phoenicians, than the Greeks, the Babylonians. How come the Chinese are still here and they're not extinct? Because they never tangled with the Jews, Malka. Kawinky dinky? Gee, I don't think so. The Chinese, older than the Babylonians, are just as old, and they're still here, not extinct. They never persecuted the Jews. Isn't that incredible? Avram, Kawinky dinky? I don't think so. Look at the last pasuk in the parsha.
Amazing, huh?
Parshat Bo, the very last pasuk, it speaks about tefillin. Exodus 13, verse 16. The tefillin shall be for a sign al yatka. Al yatka. The tefillin shall be signed on your hand. Yatka is written funny. There's an extra hay there, Avram. It's the very last verse in Parshat Bo. Exodus 13, 16. It shall be a sign al yatka. There's an extra hay there that's not needed. Why did God tell holy Moses, David, to write an extra hey, Yod-Ka? It should be spelled Yud, Dalit, Endachov. How do you say Endachov in English? Hebrew. The extra hey don't belong there. You need extra hay there. It's superfluous. I mean superfluous. It's the very last verse in the parsha.
The last verse.
The last pasuk in Parshat Bo. So the Talmud in Menachos dashes Yotka is an acronym. David, how do you say acronym in English? FBI, CIA,
abbreviation.
NYPD. Yotkeya. You're supposed to put the tefillin on your weaker hand. So if you're a righty, where do you put your tefillin? On the left hand, right? And if you're a lefty, where does Sandy Koufax put his tefillin, Maddie? Right. On his right hand.
I never asked him. On
the left hand. Why do you supposed to put your tefillin on your weaker hand? Why? Huh? Says the Chasaf Sofer. He was very Haredi. Because in the old days, they used to wear tefillin all day. You can't put your tefillin on your stronger hand, Chanok. Your stronger hand, you need to work the plow. You need to work the plow. You need to work the keyboard. You hear this? The Chasaf Sofer, super Haredi, that you have to work. So therefore God says your stronger hand cannot be tied up. Avi, literally. The stronger hand has to remain free to work. Work. And therefore the tefillin are put on the Yad Keah. Isn't that incredible? That's Chasaf Sofer. He was super Haredi. Okay, some people say, don't confuse me with the facts. My mind is made up, but this is what he says, why the Torah says that tefillin should put bidafka on the Yad Keah, the weaker hand, right? Because the Yad Yamin, you need to what? To work. Right? Can't be tied up, I'm all tied up. Get it? That's pretty incredible. Now, staying with Exodus 13, verse 11. Hashem, your God, brings you to the land which he swore to your fathers and he gives to you. So Rashi makes an incredible comment on that verse. Exodus 13, 11. God gives you the land. You have to appreciate Pisgat Zev, Ashkelon. You have to appreciate Eretz Yisrael every single day. And don't look at it as a Yerusha from your forefathers. But Rashi makes an incredible comment on Exodus 13, 11, that Eretz Yisrael is the gift that keeps on giving. Thank you. The gift that keeps on giving. And we have to appreciate. Every day you wake up in Eretz Yisrael, God says, I'm giving you the land anew. Bo Bayom, I'm giving you today. It's not a Yerusha from 3,800 years ago, but I'm giving it to you day by day.
That's why Ziona says the second benching, the second blessing and the benching. Right?
That's right. Therefore, the amazing Rashi over here, to appreciate, what?
I remember your wife saying that, so I say
okay, she learned Rashi too, right? I'm not the only one who learns Rashi, right? So the message of Rashi is that you're supposed to appreciate living in Israel every single day and wake up with a smile and appreciate, and it's not a Yerusha. I would think it's a Yerusha. How do you say that in English? But it's not a Yerusha. Rashi said it's not a Yerusha. Al tiyeh b'necho ki Yerushat avot. Elo noslacho bo bayom. What does bo bayom mean? Day, every day. Right? Appreciate the land of Israel and appreciate it every single day. That's pretty incredible. Now, the Parshas of Chodesh, the Parshas of Chidush, that's just amazing. Who decides when it's Yom Hadin? Who decides Yom Hadin, David? Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, who decides? God? No, we decide. God says you have the koyach to proclaim Rosh Chodesh. So when we proclaim Rosh Chodesh, Rosh Hashanah happens to be also what, Ramachim? Rosh Chodesh. So God waits for us to decide when he's going to have here come the judge, here come the judge. The judge waits for us. Because Rosh Hashanah also happens to be what, Avraham? Rosh Chodesh, right? Who decides when it's Rosh Chodesh? God? No, we do. It's incredible that Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippurim, the Day of Judgment, and the Day of Atonement, Daniel, is not decided by God. It's decided by us. Isn't that awesome? Isn't that incredible? God says, you tell me, Yiddish Golden, you tell me when I'm going to judge you. That's just amazing. You can put that in your pipe and smoke it 109 years. That's what it says over here, Avram. God says, I'm waiting for you to tell me when I'm going to judge you. Bavakasha. What does that, Professor Chai, what does that mean? What does God think of us? Huh? Can't do without you. It's just amazing. That's what Rosh Chodesh is all about. Shabbos, God decides. But Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, and all the Chagim, we decide through what? Kiddush HaChodesh. That's what the Torah is. And that's the first mitzvah given to us as a nation. How much God thinks of us. How much he values us. Therefore, he made the first mitzvah what? Kiddush HaChodesh. HaChodesh hazeh lachem. I give you the power of what? Of Chidush. Pretty incredible, right? HaChodesh hazeh lachem. The power to renew ourselves. Now, strange verse. Exodus 11, verse 2. Exodus 11, verse 2, God says to Moses, please, please, ask the Jews to take the jewelry out of Egypt. And Rashi says, I beg of you, beg the Jews to take the gold out of Egypt. Now, when's the last time you have to beg a Jew to take jewelry? Huh? I mean, Rabbi Everson, let's get real. Rashi says, oh, it's amazing. God says, I beg of you, please beg of them, beg the Jews, please take the gold, please take the gold. Professor, you wouldn't have to ask me, please take the gold. Go for the gold, remember that? What's Rashi talking about? God says, I plead with you, plead with them to take the gold. Take the jewelry. They're playing my song. What is this Rashi talking about, Avram? What is this Rashi talking? Isn't it bizarre? I wouldn't know what this Rashi is talking about. When he wrote this, who'll know what he's talking about? But when the state of Israel was established, and Ben-Gurion wanted to accept reparations from Germany, Begin and many people were vehemently against it. Begin said, I'm going to start a civil war. You're going to take blood money from Germany? There were riots in the streets. And Ben-Gurion says, we need the money to keep us afloat. And at the time, Rabbi Soretskin, Zechat Tzaddik Evracha, quoted this Rashi, that who's right?
God.
Ben-Gurion is right, not Begin. I'm talking to you. Rabbi Soretskin, you know what he says over here? Why the Jews didn't want to take the blood money. We don't want your stinking money. You Nazis, you Mitzrim, you murdered our children. We're going to take your money? We don't want it. So God says, plead with them. Yes, take the reparations from Egypt and take the reparations from what? Germany. From Germany. Rabbi Soretskin, Zechat Tzaddik Levracha. He said, when Rashi wrote this, nobody knew what he's talking about. But when the state of Israel came back in 1948, Maddie, look how the Torah comes alive. The Jews didn't want to take the blood money from Mitzrayim. God says, I know how you feel, but do me a favor and what? Take it. Take it. Take it from Egypt and take it from Germany. And Begin was not correct.
Iraq or the
Amazing Rashi, Rabbi Abenson. Otherwise, what's he talking about? God says, I beg you to beg them to take the gold. You wouldn't have to beg me much to take gold. Right? Go for the gold. $1,200 an ounce. Are you getting this? How the Torah comes alive in the modern state of Israel. It's just incredible. I mean, it's unbelievable. Lily, no Bible codes. You don't need any Bible codes. It's incredible. Exodus 12:13, the blood shall be for you for a sign. Says Rashi, where should they smear the blood? The movie got that wrong. They should smear it lechem laos. That they smeared the blood inside of the house, says Rashi. It says lechem, Exodus 12:13, lechem laos. Rashi quotes Chazal that they put the blood where? Inside of the house. The movie got that wrong. I remember they were smearing outside of the house. Right? The book is much better than the movie. In fact, the book is so good, I literally worship the author. Literally worship the author. Avi, right? Don't we all worship the author of the book? But they got that wrong. They smeared the blood on the inside of the house. If that's the case of Abraham, and what's the point? Right? God knows where we live. So why get your wallpaper dirty? Nachum, we're leaving the next day anyway, so who cares, right? Remember Fiddler on the Roof? She's sweeping up. Yeah. They're leaving the next day. So Tevye says to his wife Golda, what are you sweeping up for? We're leaving. I can't leave a dirty house. But they're leaving. So that's why, Malka, they got the wallpaper dirty, right? But why? Why get your wallpaper and the mashkov dirty? It's inside of the house, right? It's not for God.
It's for us.
It's for us. But what's the message? Powerful message here from the Maral Prague. The first time in human history that a human being was commanded to eat a carbon. Remember, Cain and Hevel brought a carbon. Noach brought a carbon. Avraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov brought a carbon. Would they dare think to eat it? Sacrilege, David. A carbon belongs to what? Hashem. They wouldn't dare eat it or think of it. The first time in human history that a human being was commanded to eat the carbon was when? Pesach night. Pesach night. Hear me well, the morale, amazing. With a carbon, normally what do? Up until this time, the meat was burned up on the altar and the blood was smeared on the walls of the altar. Right? The meat was burned on the altar and the blood was smeared on the walls of the altar. Pesach night, God says, I am turning the Am Yisrael and his house into a living Mizbeach. Instead of burning the animal on the altar, you're going to what? Eat it. Your mouth and stomach will be the Mizbeach. Instead of smearing the blood on the walls of the altar, you're going to smear the blood on what? Of your house. Turning you and your home into a living, breathing Mizbeach. That concept was created when? Pesach night. Pesach night. Isn't that incredible? Pesach night. What?
With the blood, we don't do it.
No, that was only Pesach Mitzrayim. That was only Pesach Mitzrayim. Right? That was, the message was then, when Am Yisrael was created as a nation.
But is that the only reason why?
That's the morale's reason, right? We don't do that again. That was just that time, because that's when the Am Yisrael was created as a nation, and we were created as a living Mizbeach, and that lesson is forever, but that was only done at what? At Pesach Mitzrayim. At Pesach Mitzrayim. So every Jewish home and every Jew becomes a living Mizbeach. Instead of burning the carbon Avram, we what? We eat it. Instead of smearing the blood on the altar, we smear the blood on our home. There's an amazing Gemara, Daf Yomi's learning, Chulam, but it's in Zvachim. A person brought a sin offering or a guilt offering, right, David? For sin. Certain parts of the animal were burned on the altar, and the blood was spritzed there, and the rest of the animal was eaten by Mr. Cohen on duty. So when would the pilgrim get kapara, Ramacham? I would say the pilgrim would get kapara when the fat, the blood, and the kishkis were offered on the Mizbeach, then the person would get a kapara for the sin that he did. The Talmud says no. Kohanim ochlim ubalim ischaprim. Only when the Kohen or the Kohanim on duty ate the steak or the lamb chop of the sin offering, only then did the pilgrim get what? Kapara. Isn't that amazing? So this concept was created when? Pesach night. Where the Kohen's mouth and stomach become a Mizbeach. On Pesach night, we all became virtual Kohanim. But the sin offering, the guilt offering, the Chotel would not get kapara. Even though the fat, the blood, and the kishkis are already on the altar, wouldn't get kapara, David, unless the Kohanim on duty ate the lamb chop or the steak. What's it called? Avocado? Avocado.
I'm talking about entrecôte.
Entrecôte, right? Only then did the chote get kapara. And that concept was created when on Pesach night. So that's why we had to smear the blood on the inside of the home, turning our home and us into a living mizbeach. That's pretty incredible, right? Now, Maimonides asked an amazing question. Why did God tell us to bring a lamb or a goat as a carbon Pesach?
Because that's what they worshipped.
Oh, why not a turkey? A turkey has less cholesterol, right?
Sure.
Right? Lamb and goat have very high cholesterol, right?
Yes.
So the Rambam said what Malka said, based on a verse in Yecheskel. The Jewish people also worshipped the zodiac of the lamb. It wasn't just the mitzvah. The Jewish people worshipped the lamb and the goat, the zodiac.
Who said this?
Yecheskel says it. And Rambam, Memor Nevuchim, brings the verse in Yecheskel, I think it's chapter 16, where the Jewish people were also worshipping the lamb and the goat. So we have to take the object of our worship, David. We take a sin and we turn it into a win. The way you sinned is the way you what? Win. And therefore, the Korban Pesach was not a turkey, but dafka, a lamb or a goat, because that was the object of our sin, says Rambam, in Moreh Nevuchim. And we, in Yahadut, the tikkun comes from the chet. How do you say that in English? The tikkun The repair comes from the sin itself. So we sin with the lamb and the goat by worshiping, like in India today, Avram, holy cow. Today there was holy goat. Not a joke. It looks stupid. But today in India, they still worship the holy cow. So therefore, we have to take the object of our sin and turn it into a win. That's Judaism. The way you sin is the way you win. That's pretty incredible. If you think about it. Nachon? Wow. What? Yeah. Now, Exodus 12, verse 26. When your son will say to you, what is this service for you? What is this service for you? Exodus 12, 26. Who's the Torah quoting here, Avram? They're 4 sons. Exodus 12, 26. When your son will say, you old fuddy-duddy, what's this service for you? Hey, get with it, Gramps. Who is this son? Russia. The Russia. The Russia. So what does the Balagoda say? Knock out his teeth. What does God say? V'amartem zevach pesachu l'Hashem. It's just incredible. The word amartem, Loshen Raka, Avram. The Haggadah says, knock out his teeth. God says, explain to him softly. It's a Pesach offering to Hashem that God passed over our homes. Isn't that incredible, Sarah? How God is much more loving and compassionate than any human being can ever be. What a contrast. Why doesn't the Haggadah give this answer? This is the question. And the Haggadah says, knock out his teeth, right? But God doesn't say that. God says, V'amartem, amira, Chavaz Loshen Raka. How do you say soft? Explain to him softly and gently. What a contrast between the way God answers the Rasha and the way the Balagoda answers the Rasha. Striking. You know, you read the Haggadah at night, you want to get to the main course. You stop and see how the Haggadah answers this question. God doesn't answer that way. You have to have patience and love for every single Jew. And therefore, there's something incredible here. Right? So in verse 27 says, Abraham, explain to him the Pesach. You have that, verse 27? Yeah. And the end of the verse? What do the Jews do at the end of the verse?
They bowed their heads and prostrated themselves.
They bowed their head and prayed and prostrated themselves. Says Rashi, why? Al Basuras Hagu'ula, because they heard they're going to be redeemed. Ubias Haaretz, and they're coming to Pisgat Zev. Upsuras Habanim, and God told them they're going to have children. What children did God tell them they're going to have? Wicked children. Mr. Ben Rasha. Are you getting this? Why are they praising God for the wicked child? Rabbi Emerson, incredible Rashi here. They're praising God. Suras Habanim, Eze Banim. It's the Ben Rasha. Every child is what? A blessing. Because this year's Rasha can be next year's Chacham. Look at Rabbi Akiva. Look at all the BTs. Huh? Just because he's a Rasha this year, next year he'll be a Chacham. So Rashi makes an incredible statement. They praised and thanked God, dafke for the wicked child. Dafke for the wicked child. Amazing Rashi here. And therefore, the Arba Banim in the Haggadah are introduced by Baruch HaMokah and Baruch Hu. That paragraph is introduced by the word Baruch how many times? 4. Right before we read the 4 sons, among them the wicked, the Balagoda states the word Baruch 4 times. And right after that he gets into the 4 sons. That every child is what?
Blessing.
Even the wicked child. Isn't that incredible?
That is.
Baruch HaMokah and Baruch Hu 4 times. So why do we thank God for the Ben Rasha? Avram, why? The very fact that the Torah considers a Rasha part of Klal Yisrael, and we're supposed to answer him, that's a blessing too. You know the famous Gemara in Krisus, Rabbi Abraham, page 6, the 11 herbs and spices. not Kentucky Fried Chicken, the 11 herbs and spices. 10 smell delicious. One of them, one of them had a very foul odor. The chelbana. Rabbi Kaplan said it was marijuana. That's what he says in the Living Torah. He says chelbana, the foul smelling was marijuana. That's why the Kahanim were very mellow. They were twice a day they burned that incense, and there were no windows, right? They were very mellow. So why do you have to have among the Ketoret a foul-smelling chelbana? Why? Says the Gemara in Krisos, page 6, that chelbana represents what? The Rishayim. Even he's part of the mix. And if that's not there, the entire avodah is what? Puzzle. And the Kohen is chayiv misa b'deisha. I don't want to put that foul-smelling odor in. I'll put a clothespin on my nose. If he leaves out that foul-smelling odor, the Kohen is chayiv misa b'deisha. That represents the Pasha Yisrael, says the Gemara. The Rishayim, even they are part of what? The Ketoret.
The chelbon is the problem.
The chelbana. No, the chelbana, he says, Rabbi Kaplan says, but the Talmud says it smelled terrible. But anyway, this is the idea that every Jew is what? Every Jew is a blessing. Every Jew is important. There's an amazing Rashi at the end of Parshat Bo. Rashi says, why does the tefillin have 4 sections? The very last Rashi in Parshat Bo, Exodus 13:14. When you get home, you can look it up. Rashi says that the 4 sections of tefillin, Rabbi Yaakov Sinai, represent the Arba Banim. Malka, you cook him with gas. Rashi says that the 4 sections of tefillin represent what? The 4 sons. Even the Rasha has what? A section of God's tefillin. Are you getting this, Abraham? Hello? This Rashi. The 4 sections represent the 4 banim, that even the Rasha is represented in God's crown. He's also God's child.
The Reish Lakish can turn into
That's right. Yes.
Sprecher,
Yes.
It's a wonderful idea that this year's Rasha can be next year's Sadiq.
Right.
But if you were in the court or police system, what do you deal with this year's thieves, rapists, and murderers?
You have to punish them, but they're still part of Am Yisrael. Can a parent disown even a rotten child? Can a parent disown a child, Avram? No matter how, you can divorce your wife, you can't divorce your kid. God is our parent. How do we know that God is our parent? B'ni b'chor Yisrael. God says in Exodus 4, my child, my firstborn is Israel. We're not just God's child, we're his firstborn. You know, Nachum, a firstborn is special, right? Why is the firstborn special? Because before they were Zuk Tzayir, now they're a parent. You have 19 kids after that, but who made the couple a parent? Who? The firstborn, the firstborn. So Exodus 4, God says, B'ni b'chor Yisrael Avram. God says, you're not just my child, you're also my what? Firstborn. Can you disown a child, Rabbi? No matter how rotten. God says, I'm your parent. You're my firstborn. Child. Not just child, a firstborn. Every one of us. And therefore, there's an amazing pasuk in Exodus 12, verse 4. All right, what do you do? Exodus 13, verse 4. 13, verse 4. Today you leave b'chodesh ha'aviv. Today you leave. Let's say in English then. It doesn't say springtime, it says Chodesh Aviv. What does your text say? No, it says Aviv. Who says? Why is the month of Nisan called Aviv? Says the Zohar. I'm over 40, I can talk Zohar. Aviv is an acronym. NYPD, FBI. Av Yud Bet. Until Nisan, God was called Boreh. God was the creator of the universe. In Nisan, we gave God another title. Now he's Av Yud Bet. The Papa. David. The father of the 12 tribes. The month of Nisan, says the Zohar, therefore it's called Aviv, because God says, I am your Papa. Av Yud Bet. When did God become our Papa, Avram? Nisan. Av Yud Bet. Bini B'chor Yisrael. God said that statement in the month of Nisan. My child, Exodus 4, firstborn of Israel. God said that in the month of Nisan. Before that, he was creator. And in the month of Nisan, we gave God another title. What's the other title? The proud Papa. Isn't that incredible? Av Yud Bet. Aviv is an acronym of Av Yud Bet, the father of the 12 tribes. And therefore, the Maral says, when was the world created? In Tishrei. Why do we count Tishrei, not the first month? Why do we count Nisan? I'm mixed up. The world was created in Tishrei. When do you celebrate Rosh Hashanah? On Tishrei, right? You say today's the birthday of the world. Hayom Harat Olam. So how come Tishrei is not the first month? Why is Nisan the first month?
It's our birthday. Jewish people.
Says Maral, what you ladies are saying. Tishrei, God created the world. But in Nisan, he created the Jewish people.
Yeah.
To him, that's numero uno. The world is important. But what's more important, Avram? That's why the anti-Semites hate us so much. So therefore, we celebrate Nisan because Nisan was the creation of Am Yisrael. Tishrai's creation of the world, Nisan was creation of Am Yisrael, and therefore we count that as what? As numero uno, because that's when Kavayochel, God came, the proud Papa of Am Yisrael. And a parent loves every child, even a Russia. Even a Russia. That's pretty amazing. Even a Russia. Av Yud Bet. The Korban Pesach. It's amazing. The Torah is teaching me table manners over here, Rabbi. I mean, you go to, what's her name, Emily Post?
Yeah.
Or what's her name? Betty Crocker?
No,
I mean, isn't that strange? What? Emily Post, not Betty?
Betty Crocker, the baker.
Oh, I'm mixed up. The very first mitzvah in the Torah, Korban Pesach, and how you're supposed to eat it. Avram, table manners, what? What's the message over here? Don't break any bones to get to the marrow. What's the message over here? Derech eretz kodma laTorah. Be a mensch. Torah is important. But what comes before Torah? Menschlichkeit, proper manners. So in the very first mitzvah after Rosh Chodesh, Korban Pesach, the Torah says have proper manners. People are watching you. People are watching you. That's how a frum Jew behaves at the table? Wow, what a message. Derech eretz kodma laTorah. That's pretty incredible. Now, how are we supposed to eat the Korban Pesach? How are you supposed to eat the Korban Pesach? Aram, take a look. In Exodus 12, verse 11, how should you eat it? Want to read that, Aram? Exodus 12:11. 12:11. Exodus 12, verse 11. You know there are 4 questions at the Seder night, Maddie. But what's the most important question, the 5th one? When do we eat? The 5th question, when do we eat? You know the story, Professor, Judaism. They tried to kill us, we won. Let's eat. What's manja manja? Why Judaism evolves all around Arya, manja manja? You ever wonder why? Shabbos, Yontif, Brit Milah, finishing a tractate. It's all about manja manja. What's going on over here?
People get together.
Every holy occasion in Judaism involves a Sudat mitzvah. Why is that? Rebbe Rapam Zatzal said something, you just came to hear this. It's worth it. When there's a Shabbos or a Yontif, you finish a Masechta, a Brit Milah, there's an extra amount of Kedusha being showered on the event. The Kedusha of the day, of the event. Tremendous amount of Kedusha that's saturating the event or the day. The Neshama is absorbing that Kedusha. But the human being is made up of Guf and the Neshama. So the Guf says, hey, that's fine for the Neshama to absorb the Kedusha of the event. But what am I? What am I? Chopped liver? By eating the chopped liver, says my Rebbe, it's called spiritual osmosis. That's what the word he used, Rapam. By eating the chopped liver, Avram, and the gefilte fish, you're transferring, is that the word? The Kedusha from the Neshama from the neshama, Rabbi Yaakov, to the guf.
That's why the word for liver is kavod.
Oh, kavod. Oh, kaved. What? The neshama gets to participate in the kedusha of the event. A yontiv, a sudas mitzvah, finishing a masechta, the extra amount of kedusha being saturated. The neshama is drinking it up, but the guf says, "Hey, what am I, spectator here? I'm also a mensch." So by the act of eating, David, says my Rabbi, you're doing spiritual osmosis. You're transferring the kedusha. Is that the right word? Transferring the kedusha from the neshama. The guf gets to participate in the kedusha, in the holy event or the holy occasion, and therefore all holy occasions in Judaism revolve around what?
Suda. Food.
Suda. Isn't that an amazing idea?
Something to soak up the liquid.
This way, then the guf gets to absorb the kedusha, Avram, by the act of eating.
Osmosis. Osmosis is the word.
When you're on 12 days.
He said spiritual osmosis. Now we got a question on the table, Sarah. Exodus 12, verse 11. How should you eat the lamb chop? Exodus 12:11. You want to read it?
With a knife and a fork.
With a knife and a fork. But how should you eat it?
So shall you eat it. Your loins girded, your shoes on your feet,
All buckled up.
and your staff in your hand.
Your walking stick in your hand, your knapsack on your back, and eat it quickly. You ever try eating shawarma quickly? You get like heartburn. I hope they had Tums. Tums EX.
Pepto-Bismol.
Pepto-Bismol. What's going on over here, Avram? And never again do we have to eat the shawarma quickly. Reb Chenoch, this is only Pesach Mitzrayim. All the other Pesach, you sit back and relax and eat slowly. Ma nishtana. You can't ask the same questions, Maddie, every year. I'm not joking. People get bored. Ma nishtana Pesach Mitzrayim from all the other Pesachs. All the other Pesach were eaten, the lamb chop was eaten leisurely, laid back. Here, you had to be buckled up, your knapsack on the back, a walking stick, and eat quickly.
You got it ready to go.
But they didn't leave until the next day at high noon. The movie got that right. The movie got that right, Malka, right? They left at high noon. So why rush them on Pesach night? That's a good question. I'm glad you asked. Says the Zohar HaKadosh, the Jews were in Memtesh Sharei Tumah. 49 levels. If they would have eaten the lamb chop slowly, there'd be nobody left to save. The lamb chop was the vaccine, says the Zohar. The vaccine or the antibiotics to stop the Memtesh Sharei Tumah from going to Nun. Because once they hit Nun, there'd be nobody left to save.
They left at noon.
They left at noon. But therefore they had to eat quickly. Even though they're not leaving until next day noon. Because the Pesach was the vaccine. Remember that commercial, Lifesavers? That was the lifesaver. They had to get that into the bloodstream. David, pronto. Quick. Because they were mamish close to the Nun Sharei Tumah. And then, Rachmiel, it's hopeless. There's nobody left to save, and therefore that they eat the Pesach quickly to get the vaccine, the antibiotics, into their system as quickly as possible. No time to wait.
And who said this? This was
The Zohar HaKadosh. Therefore, it says they had to eat it b'chipazon. They had to eat it very, very, very quickly. Because if they would have chewed slow, there'd be nobody left. Nobody left to save. Nobody left to save. Unfortunately. You know, Parshat Bo has the last three makkos. Bo is gematria how much? 3. Bet Aleph, right? Because the last three makkos are what? In Parshat Bo. And the ninth makkah was Choshech, right? The makkah of what? Of darkness. The makkah of darkness. Why did God send darkness on them? Why did God send? Rashi said that they were wicked Jews in that generation who didn't want to leave, and they died during the 3 days of darkness, so the Mitzrim shouldn't see the Jews are also being punished. That's what Rashi quotes Chazal. Says Rav Soloveitchik, let's get real. The Mitzrim are not stupid. After 3 days of darkness lifts, Professor, they're going to see the morgues overflowing. I mean, the Egyptians shouldn't see the Jews also dying and suffering. So therefore, under the plague of darkness, The wicked Jews died out, the mitzvah shouldn't gloat. But when the darkness lifts, aren't they going to see there's what?
Fewer Jews.
The morgues are overflowing. Hello? Now, Soloveitchik explains that the Agadata, the Ramban said it before him, the Marsha, the Vilna Gaon, that the Talmud consists, Maddie, of Agadan Halacha. The Agadic part of the Talmud is not to be taken. Who said that? Nachmanides. Next week, the OU will be showing that film, Disputation at Barcelona, the great Ramban against Pablo Cristiani. But the Ramban says clearly that the Agadic part of the Talmud, the Ramban, is not to be taken literally. It's a metaphor. Who's bigger than the great Nachmanides? But that's what he said. All right? So, says Soloveitchik again, this is a metaphor. It doesn't mean that they died physically. It means they crossed a red line into such spiritual darkness where they actually joined the enemy, like we have today, rabbis for Palestine, lo yaleinu.
Yes.
They have rabbis for Palestine. At J Street, breaking the silence, where Jews become so full of self-hate that they actively join the enemy. And this is what happened to these people. They died a spiritual death, and they refused to what? Leave. And it doesn't mean that they died physically, but they died spiritually, where they completely assimilated. And that's what it means.
Where did they bury them?
What?
You said they didn't die physically.
We just said that they did. That's Soloveitchik's point. There wasn't enough morgues to put the bodies. But this is a metaphor. They died from spiritual darkness, not in the physical sense. They died spiritually by joining J Street or breaking the silence.
They were 80%.
They were not so good to leave, they couldn't leave.
They didn't want to leave. Not they couldn't leave. How come Dosan and Aviram left? Dathan and Aviram, how come they left? The movie got that right. Remember? Remember Dathan? What's his name? Edward G. Robinson. Hey, Moses. Hey, Moses. They got that right. So how come Dosan and Aviram, why did they leave?
They want to be saved.
They wanted to leave. They were wicked, but they wanted to leave. These people didn't want to leave. They didn't die physically. Now, it's just amazing that Pharaoh says to Moses, Exodus 10, verse 10, 10:10. Don't 10:10 on your dial. Don't leave because there's evil against you. There's evil against you. What do you mean evil against you? How do they translate that? Exodus 10:10? Pharaoh says to them, there's evil against you.
The eternal will be with you, so I will let you go, and your little ones look at. Evil is before your
Evil. So Rashi says there's a certain star which is called Ra. Pharaoh was a great stargazer. Remember Gene Dixon? And he saw that the Jews in the Midbar, there's going to be evil against them. There'll be bloodshed. That's what he saw.
Circumcision.
That's what he saw. And when the Jews worshipped the Egel, Rashi says, God wanted to destroy them. Moshe said, you can't do it. Lama Yomim Mitzrayim bara haitziyam. They will say, the Mitzvim will say, I told you so. I told you so. It's just amazing that stargazers do see. Hashem gave them that koach. So the Jewish God wanted to destroy us for the Chet Egel, but Moses says you can't do it because Pharaoh will say what? I told you so. So God spared us, but what happened to the bloodshed? That was the Brit Milah. When Yeshua ben Nun in Joshua 5 made Brit Milah for them. But it's just amazing Rashi here that we were saved from destruction because of what? Astrology. Amazing Rashi, a lot to talk about that. How astrology, maybe I should talk about that. What do you think, Avram? Yeah. How astrology saved the Jewish people. Ari, you'll come. How astrology saved the Jewish people from destruction. That's what Rashi's saying. That if it wasn't for the astrological sign that Paro saw, God would have made an end of us by the Chet Egel. But he didn't, because Moses says, you can't do it, God. The mitzvah will, how do you say the word, gloat or makas? And because God heard that, God said, okay, I'm relenting. So what about the bloodshed that Pharaoh did see? That was the bloodshed of what? Brit Milah. But if it wasn't for Moses' taina, if it wasn't for Moses' argument, Chas v'sholom, God would have destroyed us and started over. What about his promise to Avraham, Yitzchak, Yaakov?
It wasn't Moses.
Starting over with Moses. I'll make you the new Abraham. Remember that song, Starting Over? God said that to Moses. I'll start over with you. But Moses said, you can't do it. We can't allow Pharaoh to have the last word. Which he said, raw. And Moshe's taina was, God, you can't do it. Lama yoimil mitzrayim bara hoitziyam. You can't do it. As Pharaoh said over here, I see evil against you. So we see that the stargazers do, Nancy Reagan, she gave an interview, remember years ago, that President Reagan wouldn't do anything in the policy unless he consulted with Gene Dixon.
No.
Yeah? Yeah?
No, I think it was just Nancy was doing it.
No.
I'm wrong. He was
Gene Dixon, what?
30 years later.
What?
The Brit Milah.
That's 40 years later, Joshua 5.
It wasn't
Sure,
that.
it's Ronald Reagan.
And
What they were talking about.
40 years later. And therefore, Joshua 5 says something amazing. Joshua chapter 5, Sarah. When he circumcised them, he says, Hayom galoti escherpat mitzrayim aleichem. Today I have removed the humiliation of Egypt from you. Sha'oinu lechem, the Mitzim kept texting us. Rashi. The Mitzim kept texting us, Dam on the royin bamidbar. We see that you're going to come to a bloody end. So the entire 40 years, the Mitzim kept sending us SMS or smoke signals. That's what Rashi says. You'll get yours. Only in Joshua chapter 5, when he circumcised the Jews in Gilgal, then he says to them, today I have removed the taunts and the humiliation that the Mitzrim kept taunting you all these 40 years. Now they see that the blood was actually what? The blood of circumcision. But the entire 40 years, they kept taunting us, Avram. They kept sending WhatsApp. Smoke signals. That's what Rashi says. It's amazing. Wow. So we have to thank our lucky stars, Aryeh. Should I talk about it, really? We have to thank Allah. It's amazing, Rashi. Yehuda, what's going on? How astrology, you like the title? How astrology saved the Jewish people from destruction. You'll come?
Not,
You won't come?
Not here.
No.
After. When is it?
No, not yet. No, as we get closer to Pesach, as we get closer to Golden Calf, coming attraction.
Closer to Pesach, because the next
Right. It's
I'm working.
coming attractions. Okay.
Get it on the internet.
Something to what?
Say starring Rabbi.
Right. Now there's an amazing Rashi over here. Kovet Habriot. Rabbi Abrams, very difficult Rashi. Exodus 11, verse 8. Exodus 11, verse 8. This is Pharaoh. This is Moses speaking to Pharaoh. What does he say to him? Exodus 11, verse 8. Anybody?
Then all these servants of yours will come down to me and bow to me, saying, leave you and your entire people that follow you.
Moses is speaking to Pharaoh. Right? All your servants will come to bow and beg me to get out. His servants came? Who came? He came. So Rashi wonders, why does holy Moses say, all your servants will come down to bow down to me and humiliate yourself and beg me? Well, it wasn't the servants, it was Pharaoh himself. Says Rashi, Cholak Kovet Lamalchus. Moses was showing covet to the king. Because in the end, it was Pharaoh came begging and pleading him to get out. What an incredible Rashi over here. This guy was a Rasha Marusha. And yet he was a human being. He deserves covet. Arya, what a message. If a Rasha Marusha deserves covet, what about a regular human being who's not a Rasha? How we have to give covet and dignity to every person. Madach Paroi the Rasha. Rashi says Moshe gave him covet.
Why?
Because he's still a human being.
But he's a Russian.
But he's a human being.
Because he was a king, and he couldn't.
So a person that's not a Rasha, doesn't he deserve covet and dignity? Powerful Rashi, Avram. Put that in his pipe and smoke it. Rashi says he gave him covet.
Don't Rishon deserve to be executed?
What? But it's still a human being. A mensch is a mensch, and a person gets this punishment, but he still deserves what? Dignity. A person is a person.
It just shows.
And this is a Rasha. So this is a Kal V'chomer. I say Kal V'chomer all the more so for us that we have to show what? Respect and dignity. Every person. Because every person is made in Tzelem Elokim. Doesn't say just Jew. Adam and Chava were not Jewish. And they had a Tzelem Elokim, right? They were not Jewish. Adam and Chava were not Jewish. And said that God gave them a Tzelem Elokim. So every human being deserves respect.
It just shows how much Moses had control, and he wasn't angry.
Right.
Because if he was angry, he would say, "You'll see,
You'll see, I'll show you," right? He didn't say that. He said, your
What about
servants
what
will come down, right? Your servants will come down, and he gave covet, and the message is for us to give every person respect, right?